young daughter who challenges me to think about things that I had never really thought about before. She very much keeps me on my toes. She also has these wonderful cousins who are around her same age, and they also kind of give me pause to think and consider, especially when they're all like around each other and in the same place. I've noted that they're all around the same period in their development where one of their favorite words is no. Followed by kind of a secondary phrase, which some of them can say well, some of them are still kind of stumbling over. Stop it. Stop it. Who taught you that? That's cute. Alright? And between no and stop it, it seems like no matter really what the question is, what the proposition before them as presented, at least my daughter, her phrasing is no and stop it. It could be, do you want chicken, which is her favorite food? No. And then 5 minutes later crying because somebody did not give her the chicken. Right? But there are legitimate times where the no and stop it really are against the grain of what it is I'm asking her to do. Go to bed, wake up, put on your clothes, put your shoes away. You know, the little stuff that you try to present to them and give them as they're growing up. It is a challenge to what I consider legitimate authority. I consider it legitimate, right? My legitimate authority to direct her life, tell her what to do, give her some honest options, my opinion, my thought process, to get her to grow and make her a productive person as best I can. Tonight what we see is various individuals in kind of this big exchange of authority, right? Everybody kind of grasping for it, looking for it, thinking about it, considering it, and really in the end realizing that there's only one person throughout this scene who actually has it, and what that kind of means for everybody else. So we jump in chapter 20, kind of on the heels of Jesus having cleansed the temple. It's kind of what immediately follows, and I think it plays a great backdrop into what occurs here. We're also in Jesus' Passion Week, so that kind of also is the backdrop for which we're looking at this particular text. And so this is how it reads from the English Standard Version. It says, "One day as Jesus was teaching the people in the temple and preaching the gospel, the chief priests and the scribes with the elders came up and said to him, 'Tell us by what authority you do these things, or who it is that gave you this authority?' He answered them, 'I will ask you a question.'" Jesus does this quite often. "Now tell me, was the baptism of John from heaven or from man?' And they discussed it with one another, saying, 'If we say from heaven, he will say, why did you not believe him? But if we say from man, all the people will stone us to death, for they are convinced that John was a prophet.' So they answered that they did not know where it came from. Jesus said to them, 'Neither will I tell you by what authority I do these things.'" So, a few questions, a few things that kind of jumped out at me as I began to read. Who are the subjects of our inquiry in this early portion of the text? What are the characters? Who are the people? Who's present according to John 20:1 through 8 during the course of this conversation? Jesus.
Priests and scribes.
Priests, scribes from the temple. So we have the chief priests, we have the scribes, and we have the elders. Now, why is it that you think Luke points out this particular group of people? Remember, Jesus is teaching in the temple, so there were more people there than just these. And I'm certain that there were probably more people who had some questions. But why were these particular people of interest to what Luke is presenting to us? In your opinion?
People who should already know the answer to the question.
People who should know the answer to the question, absolutely. And why do you believe they should know the answer to the question?
Because they're chief priests and teachers, like they should know they should know. I mean, to me, they're leading people, right? Part of their job is leading people, and they're in the forefront of spiritual guidance. They should know this.
You digging in, you digging in, you get there, right? So these people, by the sheer fact of their knowledge, which has given them a position, right? So they are chief priests, meaning they come from a lineage of individuals who are responsible for connecting the people to God, right? They are the scribes. These are the folk who know the book. These are the lawyers. These are the people who said, no, this is what it says, this is what it means. No, this is it. These are the translators. These are the deep folks, right? And then there are the elders of the tribes, right? These are the folks by virtue of their age, their wisdom, their position. They have functional leadership over these varied individuals, varied tribes, right? So these are people who are in the forefront. They are leaders. One of the things that I've learned, or am learning, I should say, is that leadership, especially in terms of practical administration, generally requires some level of knowledge, or at least perceived knowledge. And most of the time when people have this knowledge or perceived knowledge for some odd reason, maybe it's for longevity in their position, to save their own job, whatever the case may be, they hoard the knowledge for themselves, dispensing it only rarely, if only just to maintain the allure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. In other words, I'm not giving this knowledge up because I'm scared that if I give everything I got, people won't need me anymore. Right? If I fear that if I give you it all, then what good am I? I got to keep myself around for a little bit, right? So they are fearful. Heaven knows that Jesus knows more than them and has been authorized to dispense this knowledge in lieu of them. I'm scared he's gonna take over. He leading folk. He's interpreting the law. He's trying to connect us to God. He's doing our job. Bro. We gotta stop this man, right? And they become worried, and so they're questioning him, right? They're questioning him about a term they use in the text. They ask him, by whose authority are you doing these things, or who is it that gave you the authority? What does the term authority mean?
Power.
Power?
Right.
You said right?
Mm-hmm. R-I-G-T, right.
So the term authority.
Legal, yeah.
Go ahead. Legal.
Legal right, that's.
Legal right.
That's what it says.
We want to think of the term authority just in those terms. The legal right, the power, or the freedom to operate. There are no hindrances or bounds to the way that you can operate, right? And many people get authority by different means, right? Tell me some of the people that, you view as in a position of authority, and if you will, why?
My boss.
Your boss, okay. Your boss is in a position of authority. Now, we're live streaming, so just we don't film, just those two. But we, just while we have the conversation, it'll be clear. I want him to still be your boss tomorrow, is all I'm saying. So So, your boss. Why is your boss in a position of authority over you?
Because of the hierarchy of our organization.
Hierarchy of your organization. Okay. So, by the position they hold, they are in authority over you. Okay. Anybody else? Any other?
Police department.
The police department. Okay. What kind of authority does the police department have?
They carry guns.
They carry guns. Okay.
To uphold the law.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
Supposedly.
Okay, I'm gonna do both, right? So they carry guns. So what you described is authority by force, right? You have authority because you have the ability to force your will upon somebody else. They cannot escape from it. You have that authority over them. In one aspect, authority is given because somebody has a position. In this aspect, authority is given, and as it's been described, I'm not saying that that's necessarily all of it, but as it's been described, is a force. It's a show of force, forcefully are authoritative. And then you had stated also about the police, the legal position,
To uphold the law.
to uphold the law. Okay, uphold the law. So yes, they have the authority to uphold the law, and who's given them that authority to uphold the law? Because, the ideal of a professional police force is not necessarily a historical truth. That's more of a modern one. Prior to us hiring police, training them specifically, and allowing them to take care of the law, there was mob justice, right? So how did we get to the point where the police have been given the authority to be the people who uphold the laws for us?
The local municipalities.
Local municipalities? Okay.
That's part of their charge.
Okay, that's part of their charge. So part of the charge of the local government is to uphold the laws. The people who they've allowed to or given that authority to are the police. It is codified as well in the Penal Code, Section 830, is what gives the police their power to arrest, their charge to do whatever other work they do based upon being hired by a local police department. And they are also authorized under a post department. That's where they get their training and standards from. And so all of this comes back around to us who as people have voted for, in our Republican form, other folks to represent our needs and our interests. And through them, we've instituted this professional police department. And so we've willfully given up some of our authority, our right to protect ourselves and all that. We've given that to a police department to do on our behalf. We've given them authority. And we recognize that authority because we've politely given it to them, right? Okay. So we have authority by position. We have authority by power. We have authority that is given. We've just kind of ceded it to some other. Are there any other forms of authority? Any other ways or means in which people exercise authority?
Mom.
Huh? That's a powerful authority right there. Right? That is, Oma is, yes, that is a powerful authority. Why is a parent an authority figure?
That's God's placed as a steward to be that's over an individual's life.
Okay.
She raised me. She's basically shown me how to live up until this point independently. That's the goal, to be of some guidance. And so when she says something, I need to take heed to it.
But you're grown.
Direction.
But you're grown. Even now?
Even now.
Okay.
Yes. Oma, yes.
So, the same Oma I know.
The same Oma you know?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So that's authority. Okay. So no shade, but question. We talked about these different authority figures. What about Jesus? What about God? What about the Holy Spirit? So,
he has authority based on, he is our creator.
okay, authority based on the fact that He is our creator, we are the creature. Okay, awesome. So, in the instance and in the sense that God is in authority, that means that He has freedom to operate. How far does His freedom go? How far does that freedom for Him to do what He wants to do, what pleases Him, His ideology, His sovereign reign? How far does that go? Because all of the other authorities we just described, all of those other authorities are limited. The moment your boss loses that job, we want them to have a job for a while now, right? But they no longer exercise authority over you. I mean, if they don't go up a lot, they just get away from the company. right? The moment that the police officer turns in the badge and the gun, they both lost the force and they've lost the legality to exercise authority for you. Police officers have it 24/7 even while they're off duty, but say like a probation officer who is a law enforcement officer only has it while on duty. So their authority is very limited. Their ability to arrest and act that is very limited. And even parents' authority tends to wane with time. At one point in your life it was absolute, but then you got grown. Around 19, you thought you had a few ideals and had life figured out, and then you came to conclude that you didn't, right? but over time, your own will kind of has gotten in the way of that quote-unquote authority that parents have over you. They still have an influence, but it's not necessarily the same authority. So what about God's authority? What about Christ's authority? How broad is that? What's the term of that authority?
God is sovereign and He's eternal,
Okay.
and His authority is eternal, and it's don't have no limit.
Awesome. No limits. His eternity, his authority is eternal, and He's sovereign. And so they're questioning Jesus Christ, who, although currently in their time was in flesh, was indeed eternal, always existent, omnipotent, all of that good type of stuff, omniscient, His sovereignty. And so Jesus is speaking from an authoritarian perspective because He is ultimate authority. So, why are they questioning it? If these are people who are in a leadership position, who have authority, if these are people who are interpreting the law, the scripture, if these are people who God has even put in a position to draw the people, His people, closer to Him, if these are the elders who have grown and have wisdom and should be leading the people in the path of right, why are they questioning the very authority of the person who gave them their charge?
Could be to discredit him.
To discredit Him?
Because at this point, I don't think they don't believe that He's the Son of God.
All right.
They don't recognize.
They do not recognize Him as the Son of God, and they do not recognize or want to heed to His authority. Question. Probably asking too many, but y'all pray with me. If we fail to recognize the sovereignty and authority of God, does that nullify the sovereignty or authority of God?
Absolutely not.
And so the things that He declares, even though we deny them, must still be true. And so if He's made a declaration about what will come to pass based upon a certain lifestyle or life choices, even if we deny that He's in charge, because we recognize that His sovereignty is eternal and authoritative and not going away, that means all of that stuff still has to come to pass. So it reasons that even though they are denying Him, and this is the hard part, they're still subject to Him and subject to everything that He's declared. Herein lies the rub. People who are in dark perishing. People control what they think that they to light, or recognize this authority over them. Because to recognize His authority means that you're then responsible for the things that He is saying about your life. And here's the hard part. Right? Here's the part that sometimes we don't really get into in church a lot because we don't want to hurt people's feelings, and we like bubbly church. Like we like bubbly Christianity. Like that's good stuff for us, right? But the truth is, what Jesus has proclaimed over and over and over again to this group of people who are just like us in so many ways, is that you are a sinner, and this is what's going to occur. Hell happens. There's going to be gnashing of teeth there, toss you into outer darkness. He describes a place that is not lovely and not bubbly, but He then raises, the periscope of hope and says, but if you follow me, that doesn't have to be your life. It doesn't have to go that way. If you believe on me, if you learn of me, if you become like me, if you look like me, if you do what I'm telling you to do. And He's saying all of this, but because people who are in darkness cannot see light, don't want to see light, will refuse it at all costs to maintain the status quo that's called negative enforcements. They want to maintain the status quo. They want to maintain the status quo at any cost, even their own souls. They won't change. Now, I find that to be a sad thing. I think that's sad. That no matter how much truth you present to people, there are some people who they're not going to accept it. I think that's sad. But what I appreciate about Jesus Christ, and what I appreciate about the work of the apostles, and what I appreciate about the people even in this room, is despite all of that, we continue to preach the gospel. We continue to present the opportunity. Even when people say no the first time, we continue to go back and reiterate these truths in love. Because ultimately what we want to see is people helped, healed, saved, delivered, not cast into outer darkness, not finding themselves in hell. Here's how Jesus answers the question, and I'm curious as to why he answers it like this. He answered them, he says, I also will ask you a question. Now tell me, was the baptism of John from heaven or from man? So John the Baptist, baptized in Jordan, who was he doing it for? Who was he doing it on? Whose authority basically was he doing it on, right? And discussing with one another, this is their discussion. If we say from heaven, he will say, why did you not believe him? But if we say from man, all the people will stone us to death. For they are convinced that John was a prophet. So they answered that they did not know where it came from. And Jesus said to them, neither will I tell you what authority I do these things. Strange way to answer their question. Jesus had this habit of answering questions by asking questions, why? Make them think. Make them think. And this is not a new tool. This was used in the Old Testament when David went with Bathsheba and the prophet came and said, hey, a man had it. So this is not a new tool. The point is, I want you to think deeply about what you're asking. And really, I kind of want you to consider your weight. Watch this. They didn't give an answer to Jesus' question. What was their concerns?
Answering wrong and possibly facing death from people, or answering opposite and making Jesus, well, they say it was from heaven, then of course all the other prophecies would be correct, and Jesus would be the Son of Man, or the Son of God. I'm confirming that.
Because if we say that John's baptism is from heaven, then we also have to say, or we have to reason, that what he preached about Jesus was true. So this is the Messiah. We can't say it's from heaven, even if we believe that. Right? Even if that's what's in our heart, we can't say that, because at this moment we're fighting this man. We're trying to make sure he doesn't take the power we have. Right? But we also can't say it was from man, because to make that statement, because apparently this is a public conversation they're having, would cause our lives to be in jeopardy. Right? So what's the compromise they make? I don't know.
Like the kids, like you started. Did you do that?
I don't know, and what you say? Those two things. Those two things. Somebody tell the truth, but you say, you heard me. So they compromise, right? They decide not to answer the question or to deflect from the question because they didn't want to answer with the truth. Do we know people like that? That when the truth is too complicated, when the implications of the truth are too powerful, if you will, they mean that I have to be responsible for some things, they kind of just compromise, just won't do anything. Right? We know people like that? Can we dig? Have we been people like that? Sure. How do we come back from that? How do we step back from that place of compromise?
Well, I believe that if you're a believer and if you're taking heed to the direction of the Holy Spirit, you will turn from those things that are worldly and that are not characteristics of God. That's right.
You have a conscience, you have a kind of a circumspect moral compass, right?
Let's see, I was going to say conscious or repentance.
Mm-hmm.
Just to humble yourself and acknowledge that you trust Him. So yeah, in order to turn from those, yeah, you gotta repent. You gotta acknowledge. You have to take responsibility.
Woo! And that's not always easy. Right? You use the term repentance. I like that term because often what we talk about repentance is turning away from, right? But it's not just turning away from what was, but you're really turning to, you're affirming that there's a better way and that you're actively seeking that way, right? And so that's how we got to get away from the compromise, right? And what I like about Jesus is Jesus is the very person we ought to be running to. That is what he is who we ought to be actively seeking, who we should be trying to resemble, who we should be trying to look like, so that when we come to these type of moments where life is questioning us, if you will, we can be victorious. We don't have to compromise. We don't have to shudder away from these big truths. Because the truth of the matter is, had they just accepted John for who he was, the reason that Jesus was Jesus, they would have not lost anything. They really had nothing to lose. Right? They'd still been the chief priests. They'd still been the scribes. They'd still been the elders. But they had Jesus.
But they did have something to lose.
Yeah.
What did they have to lose?
They were proud. Are you saying, was it worth?
What did they have worth losing?
No.
Yeah. What did they have worth losing?
Yeah.
Because pride goes from fall. I mean, that's, yeah, but they didn't have anything worth losing. I mean,
Well,
everything they were working for.
you say that, but now step back and think about their people.
True.
Okay, so now you're the head person in charge.
Okay.
Okay, and now you have to yield to the real head person in charge. There's some more stories in Luke right here in Luke 20 that will.
But I'm curious though, right? Wasn't the whole point of your headship and your leadership to hand these people to God in the first place?
Clearly.
So, what is absolute power?
Corrupts absolutely?
Correct, absolutely, yeah. They got the big head.
Okay. Okay. Very dangerous. Very dangerous. So verse 9, very dangerous. Very dangerous. Because that I think that more than anything is the biggest danger of leadership,
Right.
especially spiritual leadership, is when we lose focus on what the end goal is, and we make ministry, our leadership, the work we do, and whatever it is, about us or maintaining status quo. I think that's dangerous, because not only are we not helping people, we may be actively hindering them, but moreover, we are actively hindering ourselves from experiencing the fullness of God and the fullness of the potential that the ministry has. In other words, we're not even realizing all of the ministry aspect God has for us because we are standing in the way of what He wants to do, trying to maintain the status quo. Imagine if they would have simply said, He is the Christ, the Son of the living God. Everybody who said He is Christ, Son of the living God, they was out, casting out demons and healing the sick. Imagine if you just allowed Him to be God in your life, Christ over you, the power you could have exercised, but you decided that what you had, the locus of control you had, was enough. Right? We limit ourselves in that respect. That felt good. Okay, verse 9.
there's another saying about wanting to be a big fish in a little pond, or a little fish in a big pond.
I see. I see.
So, you know, what I was thinking when you were talking about when we're leaders in ministry and how sometimes we want the focus to be on us and what we're doing rather than the work for Christ. Even in the world when we're over people, when we have a leadership role with people, we have an opportunity to show people who we are in Christ so that they might come to Him. And I think that's just the biggest travesty as having a ministry at church that you are lording over rather than helping to minister for kingdom building. I think that's just as bad.
Absolutely. Because that's a great ministry field. Absolutely. So he said that he began to tell the people this parable. A man planted a vineyard and let it out to tenants and went into another country for a long while. When the time came, he sent a servant to the tenants so that they would give him some of the fruit of the vineyard. Note it says some of the fruit. But the tenants beat him and sent him away empty-handed, and he sent another servant. But they also beat and treated him shamefully and sent him away empty-handed. They sent yet a third. This one also they wounded and cast out. Then the owner of the vineyard said, "What shall I do? I will send my beloved son. Perhaps they will respect him." But when the tenants saw him, they said to themselves, "This is the heir. Let us kill him, so that the inheritance may be ours." And they threw him out of the vineyard and killed him. What then will the owner of the vineyard do to them? He will come and destroy those tenants and give the vineyard to others. When they heard this, they said, "Surely not." But he looked directly at them and said, "What then is it that is written? The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Everyone who falls on the stone will be broken to pieces, and when it falls on anyone, it will crush him." All right, so parables, love them. What's happening in the parable? What's going on? Who are the players? What are they doing? So we have a landowner.
Husbandman.
And the landowner has leased the land out to some,
Property managers.
okay, leased it out to some tenants and property managers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when the harvest season came, the property owner sends out his servants to those managers and says, "Hey, I need a portion. I need some repayment for me allowing you use of the land." Now, let me start. Is that fair? Does it reason well, or is it fair that if you utilize something of somebody's and it benefits you, that a portion of that benefit should go back to whomever allowed you use of their land? He didn't transfer ownership. He allowed you to use it. So it still belongs to him, but you're the person benefiting from it. So,
You're renting.
okay, yeah. So does it make sense that you ought to give that person something for the use of that? Okay. So what was their response?
The big.
They beat him up, sent him away. We're not gonna pay. We're not gonna pay. Sends a couple more servants. Same thing happens. We're not gonna pay. We're not gonna pay. Now, just a curious question. I know you ain't never having nobody in this room, but what happens when you don't pay them?
Eviction.
Eviction, right? Eviction. You have to go to court for what they call it, illegal detainer. You got to go and say, "Hey, listen, this person, unlawful detainer. Hey, this person is in my house and they ain't supposed to be there anymore, and I need y'all to get them out of my house. And hopefully, you also can give me some of the money that they owe me because they ain't paid me for my house." Right?
6 months.
You got to go. Yeah, you got to go. They put you out. You got to go. You don't pay your rent. You got to go. Right? So he says, maybe it's the fact that I'm sending servants. Maybe because these are businessmen, because these are, you know what I'm saying, they are men of different stature. Maybe it's because I'm sending servants. So let me send my own son. Let me send somebody who can come and who will present my authority. Somebody who will come and will present my likeness. Let me send him. So son comes, what happens?
Oh.
My God. So they beat the servants, killed the son. And Jesus says that the response of this landowner will be what?
Well, he's coming down there.
He got to come down here. Right? Why is,
With the army.
and what's he going to do? He's going to destroy those tenants. And then he's going to take the land and he's going to give it to somebody else. So a few questions seem to pop to my mind. Why do you think that the people in this parable didn't want to pay?
It's interesting because oftentimes tenants think that the landowners are rich and they don't need any more money. So, you know, my little rent, it won't hurt them if I don't send my rent. That's just one thought.
Okay.
That's for the first experience.
Okay.
Greed.
Now, they don't even greed. Greed. I want to be able to get all the profit without assuming any risk, without spending anything in it. I want to be able to have it all. I want to do it all without any consequence. Does this sound like anybody we know? I want to do the most, no consequence. Right? Not subject to anything. So, why, after sending all of these servants, is the son the more likely choice to send?
Maybe he's thinking that they will actually care about him
Okay.
the way that he does.
Okay. They care about honor, respect.
The son represents the father.
The son represents the father. Right? Why did he just come himself? Just curious thoughts. I'm just throwing curious thoughts out. Because he ultimately ends up having to come. Why does he come himself? Or I guess I should ask, why does he ultimately feel like he has to come?
Well, first I was going to say, because we are talking about God, I was going to say because he's sovereign. And we don't know why he does what he does.
That's a good
He
answer.
has the authority to do what he chooses to do.
You go back to
But going back to the scenario that's been given, maybe the father was taking care of other business. It could be anything.
Well, maybe he's trying to get them chances. You know, a lot of times God gives us chances to do right and turn and try to make the right decision. And then by the time we don't get it, it's too late. Now he got to come and deal with it. We messed it up so bad.
Well, I like the way you said it because when God comes, you know you're in
You know
trouble.
you done messed up. You admit it.
Here are the opportunities. I've given you a chance to do what's right, to do what's fair, to do what's honorable. I've given you, I sent you prophets. When you said you wanted a king, I was like, I don't think y'all really want a king, but I gave you a king. I gave you the judges. I gave you the patriarchs. And all of that I've given you. You've had some high times where you came back to me and you recognized the error of your ways. But ultimately you kept getting inside of these valleys and these low places. And so I need to send my son because I want you to do right. I want you to do what's honorable. I want you to do what's respectable. But what happens when you reject the son? And this is what Jesus' point is. The moment you've rejected the son, then all you got is wrath. What's on the other side of rejecting the son is wrath. There's no other way to cut it. Because I've given you all the grace along this way. I've given you the mercy, right? And then to top it off, he quotes this. This is what he says. The stone that the builders rejected, right, has become the cornerstone. Where does he get that text from?
Old Testament.
Right? That's Psalms 118. Right? I just want to read a little bit of that. I like Psalm 118. Oh, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. For his steadfast love, and in some translations it says for his mercy, endures forever. Let Israel say, his steadfast love endures forever. Let the house of Aaron say, his steadfast love endures forever. Let those who fear the Lord say, his steadfast love endures forever. Out of my distress I called on the Lord. The Lord answered me and set me free. The Lord is on my side. I will not fear. What can man do to me? The Lord is on my side as my helper. I shall look in triumph on those who hate me. It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in man. It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in princes. All nations surrounded me. In the name of the Lord, I cut them off. They surrounded me on every side. In the name of the Lord, I cut them off. They surrounded me like bees. They went out like a fire among thorns. In the name of the Lord, I cut them off. I was pushed hard so that I was falling, but the Lord helped me. The Lord is my strength and my song. He has become my salvation. Glad songs of salvation are in the tents of the righteous. The right hand of the Lord does valiantly. The right hand of the Lord exalts. The right hand of the Lord does valiantly. I shall not die, but I shall live and recount the deeds of the Lord. The Lord has disciplined me severely, but he has not given me over to death. Open to me the gates of righteousness, that I may enter through them and give thanks to the Lord. This is the gate of the Lord. The righteous shall enter through it. I thank you that you answered me and have become my salvation. The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. This is the Lord doing. It is marvelous in our eyes. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Jesus is quoting from what I can see, a very respectable song of redemption. It's attributed to David. Wherever he was going through, he recognized that it was nobody but the Lord who brought it. But he inputs this very interesting phrase, and there's other places like in Isaiah where the stone is mentioned. I believe it's Isaiah 20:28 where the stone is mentioned. And he says that the stone that the builders rejected has become. What does that mean? Right? Now when you read through it all, when you read, I think they call it telescopically, you look at it all, and the stone points to the same person over and over again. But what is the stone? What does it mean? Why is it important? Why does Jesus quote it in the middle of this parable about the wrath of God coming for those who rejected the Son?
The foundation, the bridge.
The anchor. Sorry, I missed that. Well, first let's identify the stone is Jesus. All right?
I have a question. Sorry. This story, okay, these people know what's going to happen. Like, they know. Because they're like, oh, now he's going to come. He's going to kill everybody. Like, they knew. So it's like, why do you keep knowingly doing wrong? Like, you're knowingly rejecting Jesus. I don't get it.
You know what?
Am I interpreting it the wrong way?
I don't think they really know. I mean, they should know, but they might not know. But this is what I was just thinking about people. Especially right now, it seems like when you talk to people, people are concerned about what they can get away with today, and they're not thinking about what's coming around the corner. They're like, if I can just get away with this right now, it'll be all good. I'll deal with that later. I'll talk my way out of it later. At least that's what I see. I see that a lot. I see people just do stuff, and you're like, man, what are you thinking? And they're just like, man, I'm getting my money on, man. I got to get my hustle done right now.
Absolutely. In the moment, and I don't know if we've all done it. I've done it. In the moment, we don't think about the consequences of the future. I'm gonna spend this money right now. I know I gotta pay this rent, but I'm gonna spend this money right now because this is what I want to do. I'm gonna talk this way I want to talk right now because this is what I want to do. The consequences The far-ranging consequences, it's irrelevant. This is what I would get. Right? I call it open rebellion, but that's just how I see it. It's very dangerous. It's very dangerous because the consequences, Jesus makes clear. He says that the stone that the builders rejected. Now, let's talk about the composition of stone. What do stones, what do you think when you think about stones? Something is hard? You know what I hate? I don't say hate. No, I hate. I don't like driving through mountains. I don't like other people driving me through mountains. But I don't like driving through mountains. It's not my thing. Right? You ever drove up 5? Terrible. So, one of the things that I've noted as I've driven through mountains before, because that's just what I had to do, are these signs that say, careful falling rocks, or rock slide area. And I think to myself, this is not somewhere I want to be, if obviously there's some danger associated with these rocks. It lets me know that whatever rock they're talking about is no small pebble. That it can do some damage, right? Because its composition is hard, it's rough, it's solid, it's stable. Some of these rocks are immovable. In my house in Salida, there's a big rock sitting in the middle of the backyard, and it took 6 men and a ditch witch to get the rock where it is, and it shall not be moved. And so with that, there's two kind of ideals that come with that. Because it is firm, stable, something that lasts and is immovable, it can both do a lot of damage, hurt, and harm to people who either fall or trip over it. It becomes their stumbling block or their pummeling stone. Or it can serve as the foundation of something great, something that's lively and growing. It becomes the cornerstone, the basis for. And so in this, Jesus is describing himself. He said there's some people, because of what I'm preaching, they're going to stumble. There's some people who are going to run into me, they're going to fall. They're going to be crashed, dust, pummeled, because they're not going to accept the words that I have for them. Unfortunately, for whatever reason or what's inside of them, it's not going to change them, right? But there are some people who are going to recognize, because I'm not going anywhere. I'm very permanent. That's also one of those properties of stones, right? And especially back in the day when they had all this technology, stones were very permanent, right? I've become the basis that they build on. That's what he tells Peter, upon this rock I shall build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Try, not prevail. Attempt, not prevail. Because I'm the basis. I'm the foundation. And if he's our foundation, then nothing should be able to move us. If being the big conditional. Right? Unfortunately, the individuals whom he's talking to, they didn't want him to be their foundation. They were good with the foundations of our Father. They were okay with the foundations of Moses and the law. And I want to be clear. I'm not saying that those foundations weren't meaningful, that those things didn't have some credibility. But ultimately, they were all pointing to the same thing, the same truth, the same connection. And that's Jesus Christ. Right? If we don't connect to Jesus, if he's not the basis of everything that we are and everything that we do, and by that I mean, if we don't allow his authority, his will, his way, his glory, his truths to permeate throughout our lives, to become our lives, then we're missing it. And whenever we challenge that authority, we're literally throwing ourselves against the rock. And we wonder why the stuff we do or try to do or attempt to do out of his will fail. Why, despite the fact that we thought it was going to make us happy, we still sad. why it comes to naught. Right? All right, so I'll tell you this last little bit, and then we'll be on, right? I just sum up the whole chapter. Right? You have these different instances where people are testing Jesus Christ, and they're testing him on the basis of what is your authority or your right to speak what you're speaking about? Who made you? Who made you king, right? Who allowed you permission to say what you're saying and doing what you're doing? This is like the crux of the matter that's being asked over and over and over again. And then Jesus presents it like this, and I'll wrap it up with verse 41. He says, but he said to them, how can they say that Christ is David's son? For David himself says in the book of Psalms, the Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand till I make your enemies your footstools. David thus calls him Lord, so how is he his son? And basically, all Jesus is saying is, he's been Lord a long time. He's exercised authority a long time. Even the people in your past whom you find credible, like David, recognized him as Lord. And if that's the case, you ought to recognize him as Lord. Right? Because his authority isn't derived. His authority is. He's God. His authority just is. Right? So, we recognize and we honor that authority. The fact that he knows everything is good enough for me. You know what's around the corner, that's good. Then I'll listen to what you talk about. You been there, done that? I'll hear you out for what you're saying. Right? So that's all I got tonight. These folks were challenging the Lord's authority, but no matter how much you challenge it, think against it, try to come against it, he's still authoritative. He is still in control. And if you are not lining up, not getting with his will, not where you're supposed to be, if he's not the foundation or the basis of your life, my suggestion would be make sure you get to the point where he is. Because in the end, that's the thing that we're going to stand on. It won't be good works. It won't be high intellect. It won't be how many times our name was on the church roster, attendance, none of that. It will be, was Jesus the foundation of everything that you do? I say that because the people who were presenting this or who started this whole little saga in chapter 20 were men who were supposed to lead and who were supposed to know better. And so they had attendance and they had membership and they had status. But they didn't have Jesus. And so all of that stuff is for naught.
And they were disobedient because they knew the word.
All this stuff is for naught if you don't get Jesus, if you don't connect to the source, if you don't stand on the rock. Questions, thoughts, feelings, concerns?
We ain't no better. It's just it's
We're
amazing.
not. Why would they do that? Because they knew that they was going to die, but then we know. Half the time.
I just wrote out on the paper.
We know what is wrong, we're not supposed to do it, so we know exactly what's going to happen sometimes, and we still make the choice. Yeah. We're not there.
But I think that's good. Like, I think that's healthy that we realize that. Because there's some people who don't realize that. Like, I think some people read the Bible as those folks, them, they. And, you know, when he says whosoever, there's no, stopping and pausing and saying, woe is me. I am undone, a man of unclean lips. Any other thoughts, feelings, questions, concerns?
Work in progress.
Oh, yes. Amen. Well, to God be the glory. We can adjourn.